Hi, this is the first in the series of videos that I'm going to be doing which reveals how Jesus is seen in every book of the Bible. And we're going to start obviously with Genesis. It's the first book in the Bible, and Genesis obviously meaning the beginning. In the book of Genesis, Jesus is seen in so many different ways. And firstly, he's seen in chapter 3 verse 15. He's seen as the seed of the woman. In chapter 12 verse 3, he's seen as a descendant of Abraham. And in chapter 49:10, he's seen as being of the tribe of Judah. Throughout the Bible, Jesus is revealed as a type in different situations, through people, through events. He's seen as a type. Now, a type is a historical fact which reveals a spiritual truth. In Adam, he's seen as a type of him who is to come. And if you have a look at Romans 5:14, you'll get an idea of what that's all about. Through Abel's sacrifice, Abel's blood sacrifice, we see that a blood sacrifice was going to be God's acceptable way of redemption. And obviously Jesus is seen through that blood sacrifice. We see also that Jesus is seen as the King of Peace, and we see that through Melchizedek, who was the king of Salem, Salem meaning peace. So Melchizedek was the king of Salem, the king of peace. Jesus is seen as the King of Peace, and you can read that in Hebrews 7 verses 1 to 3. Jesus, through Melchizedek, is also seen as having no beginning and no end, because the Bible very clearly speaks about Melchizedek as having no beginning and no end, and that again is a type as we see Jesus. But probably the most prominent, outstanding scripture or part of Genesis where we see Jesus, and that is through the life of Joseph. Joseph and Jesus, there's a lot of parallels between the two. Joseph and Jesus were both rejected by their brothers. Joseph by his brothers, his natural brothers. Jesus by his brothers as his kinsmen, the Jews of the time. They were rejected by them as being rulers. Joseph and Jesus were conspired against by their brothers. Joseph was, his brothers captured him, stuck him in a well, and sold him into slavery. And they conspired against him, and they in fact told his father's lies as to what happened to Joseph. Jesus is conspired against by his brethren. The Jews of the time conspired against him and wanted to kill him. The Pharisees, the Sadducees, the scribes conspired against him. So there's a type there. We see that in Joseph. Both Joseph and Jesus were sold for silver. So again, we see Jesus portrayed through the life of Joseph. Both were condemned, though they were innocent. We see Joseph condemned a number of times and thrown into prison a number of times, though he was innocent of the charges. Jesus was condemned, though he was innocent. However, both are an object of special love from their fathers. Joseph was given a coat of many colors as a recognition of how special he was in his father's sight. Jesus, we see throughout the Gospels, was an object of his father's special love. He was his father's only son. And both Joseph and Jesus were raised from humiliation to glory. We see Joseph was humiliated, thrown in prison. He was sold into slavery, and yet he was raised from that humiliation to a point of glory where he became a ruler in Egypt. In fact, he was a deliverer of his brothers and his family from famine. And we see the same with Jesus. He was humiliated by being placed on the cross and suffering that death, which was massive humiliation. Yet he was raised from the dead, and he was raised to glory with his Father. And so we see that Jesus is revealed throughout the book of Genesis as the Prince of Peace, as an acceptable sacrifice, as being without beginning and end, and so much more. And I want to encourage you to grab hold of the book of Genesis and find in it those things that reveal Jesus, because Jesus is revealed throughout the whole Bible. Next time we will discuss very briefly the book of Exodus and have a look at how Jesus is shown in the book of Exodus. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video. You can have a look at the rest of our website, www.hisfootstep.com, and you'll find a lot of other teaching on there. Thanks for watching.